Hi, everyone. What an incredible demo day and what a great effort by all the startups. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining us in the Underrepresented Markets Q&A room. This is where you get to talk directly to the founders. And if you want more information on their pitch, this is the place to ask. If you want to know more about their future plans, this is the platform to do it. I'm Alice Coates, Energy Inc. Program Manager at Startup Bootcamp and your host today. In this room, we're lucky to have Azumi Inui from Bereave, Mukesh Ladia from Settlemate, and Adam Wood from Certified Buy. We have about half an hour with the founders, so let's kick off Q&A with Azumi, the founder of Bereave. Hey, Azumi.
Hey.
Oh. We've had a couple of questions come through during the broadcast, which we'll start with. But remember, if you've got a question you want to ask Azumi, please place it in the question box and we'll make sure we get to them. So Azumi, you empower people to take charge of something that many of us choose not to focus on. Do you find it hard to get people interested in death preparation?
Not really, because times are changing, right? And so are people's mindsets and also their willingness to talk about something as difficult like death. We recently ran a poll in Malaysia. So we asked about 2,000 young Malaysians if they find it difficult to talk about death. And surprisingly, like close to 50% of them said, no, we are already having like positive conversations about death with our friends and family. And then that was followed by, I think, around 30% of people who said, I am ready to talk about death, but my friends and family might not be as ready as I am. So those are really great indications or great validations, right, to the fact that people are actually more open to talking about death preparation these days. But I do want to add that our go-to-market strategy has always been about the low-hanging fruits. So for us, these are people who have either written their will or purchased life insurance. So these are clear signs that they are not just ready to talk about death, but they've taken practical steps to prepare for it.
I guess the logical follow-on question from that then is, who are these people? Who are your early adopters and why are they attracted to Bereave?
Yeah, we find that most of our early adopters are between the ages of like early to mid 30s. But the one recurring theme that we keep on seeing is that they're all going through some form of major life milestone. So they've either recently got married or they're expecting their first child or they've purchased their first home. So these are like points in life, moments in life where you start to feel more responsible, right? And it also triggers like a need to take care of your loved ones or even, make sure that there are no loose ends, right? Loose ends left behind. So yeah, those are like the common themes of our early adopters. But there's something to note over here. So the younger our users are, the less prepared they are. So they don't necessarily have a will written or they don't necessarily have like life insurance, but they come to us for some of our more emotional features. So they come to us to leave messages for their parents, for their partners, and so on. And that's been something that's been able to hook the younger audience.
Great answer. Moving away from adopters and customers, what about partnerships? So what are some of the partnerships that you currently have and what else is in your pipeline?
In Malaysia, we are currently working with some of the more recognizable like insurance brands. So one that I can name is Zurich Insurance. We're also working with the largest bereavement company in Southeast Asia. So they're called Nirvana Memorial Parks. They own like hundreds of private cemeteries across Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and so on. In Australia, we are currently engaging with like some of the top super funds, as well as our partners who are in Malaysia, but we're also talking to the Australian, what do you call that, business units right now. And we're hoping to announce some good news in the next coming months.
Brilliant. I'm excited for it. We've got an audience question that's just come in. So this is from Dave. What are the top 3 things you're looking to achieve in the next 6 months?
Yep, very short time. But we'll start with our beta. So we are actually launching a small scale beta early next year. The idea is just to get a few hundred Aussies to use the app, right? And tell us what else is missing or what do we need to change in order to achieve that product market fit in Australia. So that's going to happen early next year. I would say around January. We are planning to get around like a few hundred users up to 1,000, but we won't go more than that. At the same time, we're also working on onboarding some distribution partners in Australia. Our target is really to get one major partner across 3 verticals. So for us, those will be insurance, super fund, and also bereavement. So we want to make sure when it's time to launch, we have all these partnerships in place. Which brings me to the third biggest thing we want to achieve, which is we want to enter Australia with a bang, right? We want to enter and we want to be known straight away for being able to tackle such a difficult topic and making Australians and Aussies more comfortable with such a difficult topic.
That's great. It's a really good goal to have, I think. So we've got time for probably one more question. Who are your current competitors and what differentiates you from them?
Yeah, most of our competitors right now are based solely in the United States. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of players. In fact, there's not no other player in the Asian Pacific space right now. But the biggest thing that we've tried to do is that we've built the product with the diverse background of Asian Pacifics in mind, right? So we know that there's a lot of diversity here. And to give you one example, in Malaysia, if you're a bereaved user, the first time you log in, we'll ask if you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, because that's a very big population in Malaysia. So depending on your answer, we take you down 2 different paths of the product. So you only see what's relevant to you. Yeah, and it's built that way so that and it's very important because death and religion can be so intertwined. But beyond that, another thing to note is also in Asia Pacific, the economic background is vastly different, right? You have people who are urban poor, you have the well-to-dos and whatnot. And what we like to do is we always make sure there's a free version of the product. So it's a freemium model. Despite of what your economic situation is, you'll still always be able to use some form of bereave and create your own death plan.
That's fantastic. That's actually insightful for me. I hadn't realized that. So thanks for outlining that in detail. Thank you so much, Azumi. Those are some really insightful answers. And remember, everyone at home, you can ask questions, drop them in the questions box, comment if you just want to leave a comment or even simply say hello. Those question boxes are there for you to use them. So it's actually time to move on to Mukesh from Settlemate. Hi, Mukesh.
Hi, Alice.
Hey, so I'll start with a sort of straightforward question. What was your inspiration behind starting Settlemate?
Yeah, so it all started with me bumping into this person called Mary, who borrowed a little bit of money every day from her family, friends, and everyone around her, and bought some stuff over in wholesale and sold it at a higher margin in the city. From the profits, she would send a portion of that to her mom, and the rest she would keep for herself. Now, while all of that seems extremely simple, it was an extremely cumbersome process that she was going through. And when we looked deeper, we realized 2 things that was extremely open to us. One, it wasn't just a merit problem. In fact, money management is a everyone problem. And there was literally nothing available to help such a use case in the country at all. Or whatever there was, if there was anything, it was full of frictions. On the flip side, though, we thought that there was a lot of opportunity. As an example, if you look at personal remittances, we've got the highest GDP per capita when it comes to personal remittances. Yet we still utilize Western Union to send and receive money. On the other hand, if you look at today, if you open a bank account anywhere in the world, you'd probably get an international debit card that you can use to tap and pay and shop online. Out here, you actually have to apply and qualify. And if you're a business, you don't actually get one. In fact, instead, you get a credit card for which you have to hold deposits with the bank itself. So it's not really a credit card at all. On the other hand, don't get me started if you wanted to sell online. So you have about 5 to 8% in transaction fees and have to have a $25,000 deposit with the bank to be able to accept online payments. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I spent about 1.5 years just trying to convince the banks and financial institutions to do something about it. But I just kept falling on deaf ears, and no one was really willing to look into it or do anything about it. And that's when one of my family members said, you now actually understand the problem very well. You know the market and have the capability to do this yourself. So why don't you start doing it yourselves? And that's how actually everything just started.
That's fantastic. It does sound like there are some prohibitive issues there, but Settlemate really tackling them head on. So going back to your presentation, you mentioned the world's first regional regulatory sandbox. Could you elaborate on this?
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest problems we have had as a region is that our population is scattered across the entire region, which makes scalability a huge problem for us. So what the regulators have done is they've actually created an environment where startups like us can actually participate and test the market out. And it also helps us scale across the different participating countries as well, while they have actually a bird's eye view of the entire transactions that is actually going through the system.
Great. Okay, well, let's move on to kind of your customer segments. Who are your ideal target customers at this moment in time?
Yeah, so just expanding on to the a question that I answered regarding where we started. So when we realized that there was literally nothing available in the country to help support the use cases, such as the ones that we were looking into, we had to take a decision as to where we actually wanted to start. And while there were hacks available for businesses, like incorporating in the US, there was literally nothing available for individuals. So we started looking deeper into that and realized that in developing countries like Fiji or any other countries in the region for that matter, banks and financial institutions have concentrated on high net worth income segments, whilst NGO and government initiatives, they have concentrated on the underprivileged. Right in the middle, there's a huge gap in the greater contributors of economy like us, who don't have the tools or the opportunities to be able to do more with their money. So that's the particular segment that we are looking at the moment.
Right. This is kind of, I guess, an add-on to that question then. What would be your primary market of focus right now, not just customers?
Yeah, so our focus is across the countries that are participating in the Piri sandbox at this moment in time. There are currently 8 countries that are participating into the sandbox at the moment. And we are starting out with Fiji as our initial market.
Great. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your team. Could you tell us about them?
Yeah, so between the team, there is myself. I have a little bit more than 10 years of experience with financial software. Have got experience right across from consulting, development, and the aftercare of services. Also, one of the co-founders of Acton, through which I've helped the company grow and scale to Fiji's largest growing technology company. Supporting me in the vision is actually Hiren, who is established in Ibix in Australia. And then further to that, we've got Vikas with about similar experience as Hiren, and is currently established with IAL institutes in Australia as well.
I can see why your family would have said, you have the skills, you know what you're doing, why don't you do it? We've got time for maybe one more question. So can I ask, where do you see your business in 3 years' time?
Yeah, so in 3 years, we're looking at reaching about 60,000 users and making an impact on their lives, and helping them better save and invest in things that matter to them, enabling them to achieve more with their money.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mukesh. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
We're going to jump now to Adam Wood, co-founder of Certified By. Adam, hello.
Hello, Alice. This is so cool. Very excited.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, well, happy to have you. Adam, we'll start with a pointed question. Why you? Can you tell us more about your story and how you're going to be the first Uber of RegTech?
Well, we hope so. I guess it goes back in large part family lines. Our dad, my dad, my sister Leanne's dad, really set out 40 years ago to create a global network of debt collectors, which had never been done before, brought the industry together, mostly made up of SMEs around the world. And, though innovative and pioneering and disruptive for its time, as we mentioned in the pitch, right, procurement risk and compliance was killing our business. So I guess to answer really, we've got SMEs in our DNA, right? As a family, we are a family business of small businesses made up of partners in emerging and mature markets. We don't look at this through one lens of a traditional startup and tech founder looking at a traditional market. We've got a footprint of partners that Dad built and we built over 40 years into about 100 countries. So we've got a pretty significant advantage with boots on the ground. Our model is entirely, and our business and our target market is very different to anyone else that might play in this similar space. Is we genuinely care about SMEs and non-profits, and being one and living through the challenges of an SME is kind of how we build our platform. So we think we're positioned very differently to tackle risk and compliance, and very much working with the incumbent leaders of this space. We don't see ourselves as being a competitor really to anybody, because enterprise solutions in this space are so well serviced and well provided, and we want to see ourselves as being a pathway to that rather than a competitor to them. So hopefully we're doing things differently.
Great answer. I'll actually jump to a question from the audience here. So this is from Alex Perel, who's from Sizegear. I hope I pronounced that right. Alex has asked, can you give an example of any certification program your platform currently provides?
Great question. Thank you, Alex. So we originally started by building a big program. The origins of Certified Buyer was what we called a governance, risk, compliance and quality management program. And it was designed to service an RFP or procurement requirements and documents of the big companies that we were working for. Even though we were an SME, we were equally obliged to provide transparency around quality and risk and compliance. What we realized is that was a great program for a sophisticated business maturing and servicing a large enterprise. What we've done since then, since the early days, is really break them down into 3 pillars of cyber, GRC and ESG. And so really what we're providing is micro-credentialed programs across 3 pillars of cyber, GRC and ESG, but also a freemium range of programs. So we have programs that are and always will be free for micro and small businesses, because what we're trying to do is provide, in some ways, a public utility for all businesses and all SMEs that don't have the sophistication, size or budget to be able to bring in the best practice third-party consultants and advisors. So in terms of, we've got a range of programs, but primarily around 3 pillars of cyber, GRC and ESG for business. And what we've learnt through this Startup Bootcamp process is that there is a huge need in child safety and aged care. And so we've got a Working with Children's program and an Aged Care Essential program that we're working on with some early stage with some corporate partners around how do we build out those in those 2 key areas. But the origins of what we built were very much around business, supply chain, procurement, compliance, risk, quality assurance type framework. So there's a range of programs and depends on the user as to which one would fit their need the most.
Great answer. Okay, I love your tagline on our website, Adam, where you say, we automate risk, audit and certification. And if that's the most boring thing you've heard all day, you're not alone. RegTech isn't sexy, but it is very important. But the reality is that for organizations, you're providing really important work. So how will you make risk and compliance a priority for SMEs and nonprofits?
That's the $64 million question, right? And that's been the big one we've had to tackle, because very rarely people want to deal with risk and compliance and put it in the hands of an SME. It'll put them to sleep, or they're too worried about paying the next bill and keeping the doors open. For us to try and to education's a huge part of this, but led by industry bodies, regulators, governments that provide guidance. Because if we take just say the sports segment of child safety, I'm a vice president of our local basketball club. At a grassroots level, there is a need for this. Australians are a very conservative people, and so we don't want to expose ourselves to risk. But until now, there's never been a tool or a program or a platform or an ability for an SME or a non-profit at a grassroots level to actually do something about it. And that's what we've changed that. So I think there's a huge education component, guidance and leadership from industry bodies. There's a long way to go, but as I guess businesses, SMEs, non-profits realise that risk mitigation isn't just about risk. It's also, especially through the lens of businesses, procurement and positioning yourself to be able to grow your business, right? If you, through a procurement lens, have competitors that have a better position on cyber, GRC, ESG, safety, whatever it might be, you can't visualize yourself compared to them, that's probably going to set you backwards in business. So it's about trying to articulate, yes, there's an education piece, but it's not just a risk management tool. It's very much a tool for growth.
Yep. Okay. So on to accomplishments. Certified by have recently closed a POV with a major accounting association. Can you tell us more about your proof of value and what your go-to-market looks like?
Yes, we would have loved to have said it was a POC by now, but we're working our way through that. We've had a fantastic experience, and I won't mention names now, but our POVs really elevated our understanding of what an organisation enterprise type client looks like, because in many ways we've gone from a B2C to a B2B market, evolution through this program. It was fantastic. The experience was great. It pushed us in certain areas, product development, road mapping, and what we need to improve to be a more enterprise type solution for an organisation downstream to their SMEs. So far, so good. We expect an RFP process to kick off before the end of this year. So it's still our most urgent opportunity that we're hoping to close, but we're not simply waiting on that. And very clearly, with the child safety and the aged care categories through this program, we've extensively spoken with different partners that work in these spaces to try and, in the early stage, form POCs within the child sport and in the aged care sector. So we're at this stage, it's very much validate our assumptions through learnings with prospective clients in the form of a POV or a POC.
Well, we might have one for you. We've had a comment come in from Joel Rusden from Traderate. We are a Melbourne-based fintech startup needing the regulatory governance it sounds like you guys provide. When can we do lunch?
Tomorrow. No, well, yeah. Maybe not tomorrow. Tomorrow might be a little early, maybe Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, well, we've got time for, I think, one more question, a quick one. What help are you looking for at this point then?
It's just such a loaded question. Look, we have gotten so much help out of this program. I mean, we cannot speak how positively we feel about the format and the structure. We've gotten, our pitch readiness, commercial readiness, and investor readiness mostly down. Really, all we're looking for is exposure to be able to develop POVs with partners. We want to prove value to clients and returns to investors, but fundamentally we're trying to create safer communities together and to be able to change this world, especially in the vulnerable community sector, but also extending wider into the supply chain, procurement, business compliance. So at this stage, just conversations with anyone who might be interested in exploring something further.
Great answer. Okay, well, that's actually all of our Q&As. That's us done, which is fantastic. I'm going to just close up quickly and say thank you to everyone who sent in a question. And also thank you for everyone who's tuned in and not sent in a question. We're very happy to have you as well. This has been a fantastic Sustainable FinTech Demo Day, and we really hope you've enjoyed it. Remember that you can access the recordings of these Q&A sessions after the event has wrapped, and you'll also be able to connect with all the startups via our website. So keep the questions coming. We'll make sure that the founders have a means to contact you in the weeks and days afterwards. Thank you again to Azumi, Mukesh, and Adam, and we hope you've enjoyed FinTech Demo Day.